Okay, this is Saturday session, and today's topic is showmanship. We're going to talk about showmanship, specifically showmanship within performing magic. So, go ahead.
All right, so I was just, in showmanship, I think it's important to try to bring an element of personalness to like the magic that you're doing for the individual. So like, I've been looking at a lot of mentalism, and mentalism more focuses on the mind, stuff like that, and that's interesting. But I was realizing that you can also bring, even in tricks that aren't, just mentalism about mind reading and knowing about the individual, elements of like talking about the individual and who they are in relation to the trick. And I've noticed, especially with the trend, if you look at, let's say, all of the magicians on America's Got Talent recently, they usually do end up tying something in the trick back to the judges, which I think is an interesting point because, they're trying to gain points with them. So they use a lot of these psychological tricks on the judges in the essence that they're saying, okay, these cards remind me of you, or they'll say something during it like, the success in your life, and they're referring to success that actually happened in the judge's life. But most people don't realize that because they don't know about the judge's life, but if you look it up, you'll be like, oh, that's what they're doing. So I think that's good for two reasons. One, it makes it interesting to the people who are observing because they feel personally involved. And two, it just, not only do they feel personally involved, but you're going to make an experience that they're going to remember more likely. And it's better to have people to remember it in a personal way rather than just some obscure thing. So I guess that's a really summed up version of it. So I guess to give an example of what I'm talking about would be like if you notice somebody is really into, jewelry and things like that, and you talk about how this card, Keep Rising to the Top, is like the person's, need to better themselves. And magic is just like an art, the visual and the way that it plays to them and to you is a beautiful thing that they can admire, just like their, beauty that they practice themselves. So something like that, and then there you go. So.
I tend to listen to lay audience and what their thoughts on showmanship are. And I've got several friends who've been watching like TV magic and that sort of thing. The biggest thing that they all really dislike is I think John refers to them as box jumpers, the stage illusionists with the girls jumping in and out of the boxes. They don't like seeing all this Vegas-y type posing and stuff like that. And they say, why did they do that? Why did they do that? And, it's hard to explain why they do it. They do it basically to kill time, while whatever has to happen is happening. But that's the most common comment I get back from lay audience and lay viewers is they don't like that. So, but now if they saw it in Vegas, it would probably work really well. So I guess the showmanship really you have to kind of tailor it to where you're going to be.
Not here in Spokane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Isaiah uses that to some extent, but I know why he does it. There's certain things that has to happen, and it takes time. You can't just stand there on stage stock still while it's happening. For close-up stuff, I think the best example, and actually Steve Munter, Dominic's grandfather, did the trick, and it surprised you a while back.
Right.
That's actually a Juan Tamariz trick, and there's really nothing to the trick other than showmanship through the whole thing. The trick is basically totally self-working, but if you ever see Tamariz do it on his tape, he just turns it into this, like 5 or 6 minutes of just, it's not frustration that he's having problems with, but it leads you step by step by step, and it's all just his personality and showmanship doing it. I tried to do it once using cameras, lines, and stuff like that. It didn't work for me, but I haven't found a way to twist the trick around to make it usable. So you have to you have to really tailor what you're doing if you're going to do we were talking about scripting a while back and stuff like that. If you're going to write a script, it's got to apply to you and the audience, and it's got to feel natural. And so you can take hours making it look prompt too. You know?
Steve?
Oh, I feel the camera's on me. So I looked up showmanship, and there's several things about it. One is how do you improve your showmanship? One is find out who's your character. You know, not everybody can do comedy. Not everyone's a David Copperfield. I'm not a David Copperfield. And so find your character, and the recommendation is videotaping your performances, which it's hard to watch yourself because you see all your blemishes, you know. It's like when you get your face next to the mirror, you see all the pimples. Same thing when you watch yourself performing. But one of the things was watching yourself and economy and motion, taking out unnecessary movements. Those movements you were talking about are needed while the dirty stuff is being done. So, and I've always been a fan of the economy of motions. And Dave Womack talked about, they'll take a trick, a magic, and he'll have pages. Everything's detailed. She's over here, comes in, everything's precisely scripted. And so that's one thing I always try to do, only go in the bag once, and no reaching down, grabbing stuff out, have it precisely there, so it looks clean to the audience. I looked up Magic Cafe showmanship, and they recommended some books. You probably know some of these, you do too, perhaps. Magic and Showmanship by Henry Nelms, and I got the Showmanship for Magicians by Daryl Fitzke. I have not read it, but I have this. I had good intentions. And another one, Maximum Entertainment by Kim Weber.
Oh, hard to find, I think.
Hard to find?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Vanishing Magic, Vanishing Magic has audio for $20.
Oh.
And they have the book too, I think, so it's a book for like $32. And everybody raves about that. And I thought the audio would be kind of nice. What else I have written here? Oh, I saw another one, stage performance by a guy named Livingston Taylor, who he's at the Berkeley School of Music. He did this book of stage performances for musicians for their stage persona and performance, but it works for other people too. And I found on like eBay for like $4. So anyway, that was just a little bit I looked up about showmanship. But I definitely think videotaping yourself, and one of the things I try to do when you watch yourself is, are you smiling? Because I've seen some magicians that look like they're building a deck in the backyard, you know? But it's hard to do that, keep smiling, keep a pleasant face so the audience likes you.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing about performing, a big hi to John, is the number of times you say, that's John's pet peeve. Hi, John. And that's also streamlined, economizing your...
Yeah, another thing that I've noticed is the habit to flinch or blink when somebody pulls off a piece of the deception. And it's funny because people will smile the entire time, but then just in the one moment they do it, look at this like slight look. It's like micro expressions. But people can train, people who do a lot, usually it just kind of goes away naturally as you do it more, and it becomes automatic because then you aren't thinking about it. But it's just interesting to me that tends to be a tendency, just like or anything else that people say that happens when you try to do your magic. So I mean, when I look at videos myself, I've seen that before.
That's a good point, because people in general, tend to pick up on those things, these subverbal cues and stuff like that. And people that practice sleight of hand in a mirror and stuff like that, almost everybody gets into this thing of blinking at the moment you do the move, you know, type thing. And the more you practice, the more you tend to do that. And some fellow did a lecture a while back called it magician's blindness, you know, because you don't want to see actually you doing the move. And so it gets to the point where in actual performance, you're blinking, people pick up on it, they don't know what they saw or what they missed, but they did see something. And I always remember Daryl Martinez lectured here years ago, and I've always said about Martinez, he does amazing things, but I can always tell when he does whatever he's doing. I don't know what he did, but I can see it, you know. And you know, it's not any problem with him. It's just, you know, it just doesn't flow in what he was doing at that point.
In boxing, they call that telegraphy.
Yeah.
You know he's going to does that little move. You know something's.
I've been trying to figure out how to eliminate it, and you really have to be conscious about it. That's why you have to do the trick first, a whole bunch, and then you just have to literally sit here and do it as slowly as possible and just not blink. Like, I mean, it's terrible. Or like, for me, it's that closing your eyes thing. I know that for a fact.
And you wouldn't see it probably unless you videotaped it.
Yeah, I just noticed myself doing it. Like, at the first, I did notice it before in a videotape because somebody pointed it out to me at some point. I don't remember who it was. Or maybe I heard a magician talk about it and that made me aware of it. But I had already started becoming aware of it before that because I practiced the mirror so much. And I would catch myself getting ready to do the move and then I'd close my eyes. And I was like, well, I didn't see exactly what I did. And I was like, wait a minute. And so I just kind of sit there, and somebody was like, yeah, magicians blink their eyes, and I was thinking about it, I was like, huh. So then that's when I looked at the video of myself doing it, and I was like, I need to not do that.
Does the cameraman have anything to add?
You don't have to push anything, it's already recorded. Showmanship. To me, showmanship is about when you're performing a trick or a show, you try to capture the audience attention the whole time. And so it's, hello, how's it going?
Hey, man.
And so the way I approach it is I usually try to present it like tricks that I learned from public speaking, not that I'm a brilliant public speaker. But let's just say if I'm doing a show with a room full of people, I try to make eye contact with everyone, even though I might have a volunteer here. So say I'm doing a trick with this volunteer, but at the same time, I'm not just between me and this volunteer. Throughout the whole thing, I'm actually looking at these other people as well. I want to get that connection there between me as well as everyone else. And I think that is kind of like an important part of showmanship. And someone else already mentioned smiling. That's extremely important. And because there are magicians out there, perhaps they're nervous, or maybe it's just not their personality, they don't smile. And I think smiling is one of the best things you can do. A simple smile. And that eases everyone's, you know, like if people are not sure about you, when they see you smiling, they automatically enjoy your presence. And last thing about showmanship, confidence, I think. Sometimes that could be hard to do because when we're doing magic tricks, you actually try to deceive your audience. And a lot of times magicians are naturally nervous. But the thing is, if you look like you're nervous or not sure about yourself, that shows. So your audience can say, oh, the guy, he's really, really nervous. And, you know, and so but if you actually, you know, be very confident by yourself and you actually express confidence and people think, oh, okay, that's part of the showmanship. And so that's all I got to add.
I do have something to add that's interesting because for like people who are trying to, let's say, work on their showmanship and they have this whole series of tricks laid out already, right? And they want to just get into it and be able to do it. Now, the thing I've noticed, if you haven't done magic for a while, you start to get the shakes again. It just comes back naturally over time. I don't know what it is. If you do it all the time, like if you've been doing it every day for a week, then usually, even if you go out for the first time, even with a new trick, you're less shaky because you've been doing it so much. But let's say you want to, make sure that you're aware of yourself and you're doing your showmanship correctly, and you have this line of new tricks that you want to try, and you want to do them accurately the first time because you haven't done them in front of anybody. Well, what I found is useful is start out with the easiest few tricks, like two tricks that are super easy, self-working, and do those tricks and lead those into whatever new tricks that you have done. And when you go out, because you're so used to that, your body goes into that mode again, that it will remember it. And that will allow you to be less shaky and less nervous when you get to those new tricks that you've done. So I just thought that was good information.
That's actually a great tip. Even though I've been performing magic for a long time, but sometimes I do still get nervous, especially if I'm just performing in front of a whole bunch of strangers and I really want to impress them all, obviously, and then, and say I'm doing a half an hour show. So the first trick I do is usually the sponge balls. And that's not because that first of all, it's a very good trick, but more importantly, because that's my bread and butter trick. I know that trick very well, and I felt like if I just do that trick first, and I know it's going to get good reaction, and that trick I can execute it perfectly. And once that trick is over, I already kind of feel like I know these audience, and then and that's just subsequent tricks have just become a lot easier. We got some new people there.
We're not jumping up here. I met you about a year and a half ago. I'm Greg. Nice to meet you again. Yeah, I met Mom at the Chinese New Year.
That's right. Yes. Yep. And then so. We're actually talking about showmanship specifically dealing with magic. You guys got anything to add about it? It's up to you guys.
Yeah, since I got in here late, I don't know all what's been said, but
yeah.
What you were saying about starting off with self-working, it is always a good. I found it doesn't matter how much I perform, if it's for a new group, if it's for a big group, I'll still get a little shaky.
Right.
You gotta just ease into that confidence.
Yeah.
Once you've got a few really good self-working tricks, and you can get those good reactions, then you're good to go. I just got off Vanishing Ink, the Super Strong, Super Simple. It's 16 self-working card tricks.
Yeah.
And he has in it just some wonderful, wonderful, hard-hitting, self-working card tricks, which is awesome. So, a lot of the self-working card tricks, the easiest place to find them is YouTube, right? And it's like, it's YouTube magic. But this is all pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Who wrote that?
Yeah, I can look it up, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Well, I'll check it out.
Okay.
But it was a really...
The thing I always try to remember is self-working doesn't mean self-performing.
Yeah.
Very, very, very
Well, and that's why I suggested it, because that gives you time to work on that performance and be aware of it initially.
Yes.
And it gets you in the mood. It kind of sets the mood for the rest of that. So the self-working, you haven't, for me, it doesn't have to necessarily be self-working, just because if you practice something 1,000 times or, several thousand times, at that point, it's so natural, you don't even have to think about it. So you can work on showmanship. But another good tip is if you are nervous, and this is just for getting yourself ready,
Right.
because nervousness is one of the things that kills your performance the most, I think, just because you are absent-minded, your mind's somewhere else. So I will go, if I know I have a big show, like a stage show, and I know I have to start out with some complex trick or something, or do something that I haven't done in front of audiences as much, because I do less stage show than I do close-up, then I will go out beforehand to the public on a street somewhere and just do a bunch of magic tricks to get myself used to having people staring at me and asking me questions.
Get yourself in the mood for it.
Yeah. So that's the other thing you can do.
Right. Anybody else got anything to add about
I
showmanship?
have a question to ask you, other folks here. I have a theory that if you're doing an effect that's fairly complex, a lot of stuff going on, things like that you really have to get that effect down mechanically so it happens automatically to you before you can even start thinking about the showmanship side of it. You'd never gonna find that. Because if you don't know what move you've got to do next, you know, and you're trying to put all the showmanship in,
Right.
you're gonna hose up yourself.
I think what's really important as magicians is that, you know, we're entertainers, right? So you could even, look, the mechanics is super important, but you could be the most mechanically inclined and pull off sleights nobody will ever see. But if you're not entertaining,
Yeah.
people aren't going to want to come back and see it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we want to give people that great experience of, you know, magic happening. And so much of that is dependent so much on just how we present it.
You want the audience to like you.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Once they like you, and that's probably beside the first minute. Probably you're out there maybe first couple minutes.
Yeah, that's why your opener is so important.
Yeah.
You know, if you come across and immediately come across as the arrogant performer, you know, you'll never get
Nobody
the
likes
friendly audience back. You know, it won't
likes
happen.
Yeah.
Or if you screw up the first.
Immediately switch into your comedy mode.
Yeah, right. Make it a joke.
That would be awful. Screw up your first trick.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I tell you, it's happened to me before. But usually what I do is I just act like it was intentional and move on to something else that I know better. Like I have like a trick or something that I'll fall back on. So let's say something goes wrong, or I'll improvise. And because it helps to do this a lot on the street. You go out and you just see what you can do in the moment if something goes wrong. Like sometimes I've even challenged myself. I've actually intentionally messed something up midway to see where I can take it in the moment. And that just takes practice and experience. Because the more moves and variations of specific tricks you know, the easier it gets. But yeah, you know, that's just great. So if you ever do get stressed in a situation, something goes wrong, you can just fall back to something else similar and not have to worry about that.
Right.
And having some difficult people to try doing magic with, and they try to mess you up. Being able to
You know, usually
keep going with it.
it depends on how bad the person is. If the person isn't grabbing my stuff and they're not like directly messing it up, or let's say they say things that just aren't true, then what I do is I usually just I just ignore them and I do something that shows that the previous guest was wrong and everybody else sees it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I just kind of redo it and act like I don't care, and the person starts to catch on that it just doesn't matter. But if somebody actually is grabbing it, then you kind of have to tell them to stop.
Yeah.
Like if they're crossing a boundary they shouldn't cross. And other people get that usually, so.
Yeah, it takes work, but
Hey, it's worth
I
it.
don't remember who the performer was, it's been years ago, but they were doing a close-up set, it was a guy, and this woman kept reaching in, trying to grab stuff and everything, and finally he just said, stop. He says, I don't come down where you're working and turn your light off. And my God. So they're down.
that can always be rough.
Okay. Anybody else got something to add? No?
no.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. And that concludes our short discussion on showmanship. Thank you.